Yeah, okay, talk about back in a jiffy. We were back in a jiffy there. And, we're talking with Professor Emeritus of Accounting, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, Canon Benjamin Osisioma, who is President and Chairman of Council Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, as well as Dr. Kayode Fashua, past DG, National College of Accountancy, and Chief Executive Officer at the moment, Association of National Accountants of Nigeria. And we're talking there about just going away the ludicrous example of all the accounting professionals getting into bed together, which is not going to happen, hopefully. But the point has been made that these professionals, and I understand that it's not the easiest of professions to enter. It's very rigorous examinations and training and all of that. So is there a way that can be strengthened so that they have a strengthened hand so that people can't, just because you happen to be their superior, frustrate their work by, as it were, keeping the reports, which you are not allowed to do if it were a criminal matter. If it was in the criminal justice system, you're not allowed to do that. If detectives are investigating, you can't hide any investigation that you have. But apparently, the accountants, the auditors don't want to hide their stuff, but somebody else can hide it. It doesn't see the light of day until, in the unique example that Prof cited, another chairman of the board came along and he said, by the way, go bring that man and go and bring those reports. And happily, the man had his own personal file of those reports because if it's within the office, anything can happen. So is there no way that they can be strengthened either by their code, by the council that registers accountants in some way? Because it seems to me, I know it's not so, but it seems to me that they would have very weak powers, but it can't be so, can it?
Yeah, yes, of course. The various professional accountancy organizations, like in Nigeria now, ANAN and ICANN, both and probably all over the world have protection for their members. You're an accountant that you know things are going wrong, and your records are showing it, and somebody is hiding your record somewhere. The point there is that you're not expected to fight your chief executive. Like we said earlier, the function is a staff function, advisory. But when you know things are going to go wrong in the future, you have a duty to protect the organization and to also protect yourself via the language of business, which is the accounting that you are preparing.
I can see why the auditor might not be the most loved person.
No, it's not the most loved person. I've seen situations where you have a very toxic chief executive and you have an auditor and the accountant who come together. And the accountant gives the auditor the information that is needed. They have an understanding between the two of them. And the only thing they can do is to probably leak such information out to people above the chief executive, maybe the board and stuff like that, and to be able to protect himself. And that's what it is. But at the same time, where the accountant is being victimized, for instance, for doing his job, he has a recourse to his professional body.
Okay.
And the professional, of course, and the professional body will protect him and make sure that he or she gets justice.
Prof, because the time is going, and I wanted to know, there must be ideas as to how the function of accountancy, sometimes I'm a bit confused about which is the correct term. Is it accounting? Is it accountancy? How they can help curb corruption and waste?
Well, I had mentioned earlier on that part of the duty of the accountant is to plan. He sets out control parameters. The idea is to suggest the best way of doing this thing in order to better husband our resources. So the issue of waste of resources is a challenge that the accountant must supplant. So, and the basic thing is to give the advice. Put together the advice, put together the plans,
Okay.
Put together the method of execution,
Okay.
put it afoot. And like I mentioned, key performance indicators. This is what you need to do and do and do in order to get to this. And you can use that to evaluate the effectiveness.
Especially if the company adopts those recommendations
Exactly.
as company policy.
So that and then monitoring their performance over time. Monitor, evaluate whether they are on track. We have variances, variations, diversions. Look at what we set out to achieve. Have we achieved it? In fact, at times I wish somebody could do that. When we hear an annual budget, bring out the last year's budget, set out the goals,
Yes.
and then tell us how much we achieved out of those goals. Before we begin to talk about current goals, we hardly ever think about those things. We say the past is past. But when you put all those things together, it will enable us to see the extent to which our resources have been used. And you see, this issue of reporting, you can show, okay, look at the budget. This is what we budgeted. Look at our performance, this. Just by showing it to the public, use statistical measures to show graph, bar charts, whatever, and pie chart, put out all those things, and draw to the attention of people. You see, we have a wide audience. The public is a court. The parliament is a court. We have a public complaints board, a public accountability board that can pick it up to the parliament. And at different points, you can provide information, just like you picked something from IFAC.
Yes.
Somebody can pick it up and use it as a tool to insist on good performance. So these are the things we must do. We must be activists.
Indeed.
If possible, also work with civil rights groups within the society. These are individuals and groups that are geared up to getting the best for the society. Link with them. Make this data available to them and let them work on them for the betterment of the society.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Canon. Now, we're talking here about accounting. It might be in the private sector, it might be in a little company, it might be in the public sector where billions are available to be stolen if accountants misbehave, auditors misbehave, and indeed heads, if they misbehave, anything can happen. As the Canon has said, these are the areas, but maybe until this conversation this morning, I didn't know the accountant was so naked in the sense that he's depending on the goodwill of those he must work with, the goodwill in terms of their moral fiber, in terms of their discipline, in terms of their willingness to adopt as company policy some of the measures the accounting function would have laid out. I guess now I can understand that. In fact, you were saying that some people are calling for hazard allowance.
Yeah.
In that kind of a
I'm sure you support us then.
At the civil service, the accountants have actually called for hazard allowance because the job has really also been hazardous to them. I won't say that accounting is really naked as such. I don't think any discipline or any structured professional discipline goes beyond advisory. Okay. And to the extent of, except journalists,
especially courts, for instance.
There's no special courts.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in the judicial system, the courts will look at it based on certain parameters and pronounce, and it becomes law.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have that.
Part of what the accountant does, for instance, we have professional bodies. We sit. We bring our challenges to our professional bodies. Our professional bodies put together some communiques and stuff, sent to the government, for instance, at the public sector aspect of it. So it's quite hazardous. Accountants are doing their best. Mm-hmm. Like everybody will say, there can't be corruption without accountants. Mm-hmm. But there can be corruption without everybody. But everybody would like to lay the blame of corruption at the doorstep of the accountants.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, like I said, it's an endangered species. The accountant, the auditor, and stuff like that, especially in the public sector, for instance, they expect you to play games, for instance. If you don't, you can be transferred, another person brought in and do whatever they want to do. but he has his professional code of conduct to abide
That
with.
is written, codified, well known.
Exactly.
Well known.
And he uses that to carry out his functions and duties diligently.
Well, but then again, like, you know, all professionals, whether it is lawyer, whether it is medical, whether it is accounting, many of them have misbehaved.
Yeah.
And in fact, seriously misbehaved, where the ultimate sanction of, I think, up to jail time has been imposed. So for all of this, the character of the person, the ethical, shall we say, barometer of the person is also going to be important. In the same way as you expect a judge to be of a certain kind of character, you also expect an accountant to also just not have the long throat, not have the long eye kind of a thing. You just expect that he's insulated. Whereas I imagine that most of the times it is like that, but there are exceptions. I think you were asking, so who watches the watcher? Who watches the gatekeeper? That kind of a thing.